talking about capital and showing me the money. This engaging person is a beacon in the sustainability sector, advising industry leaders and shaping a greener future. Please give a warm virtual welcome to the RELX SDG Inspiration Day stage. It's the founder and CEO of Pineapple Sustainable Partnerships, Andy Jewish. How are you, Andy?
Yeah, great. How are you, Esther?
Very good. Sorry, I'm saying
having
your
me.
name. Dewis, Andy Dewis.
Dewis.
Andy Dewis. And
Yeah.
I saw a picture of you holding a pineapple. So
Yeah.
that says it all, really. You're a juicy, fruity person.
Thank you. And everybody loves pineapples. And I'm feeling very, very inspired. I've got my "Be More Ridiculous" written on my pad from the last session. So.
Great. I'm gonna go away and do my
Yeah.
Be More Ridiculous. And I know that Lauren, who's the scriber of the day and from Scriberia, doing all the art about today. Lauren, please do let's have a Be More Ridiculous section for us. And then we can screenshot it. I love that. I'm going to put that above my computer today. So I am going to hand the floor over to you, Andy, and you can introduce your panel. Really great to see you. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. Thank you. And I take it the panel will magically appear somehow through this. So, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this session. Big congrats to the RELX team as well on what is no mean feat, pulling off another epic Inspiration Day. I'm feeling very inspired and very excited about the next 45 minutes. It's great as well. I always love these events because you can get to sort of see the breadth of the audience is amazing. People from all over the world, all sorts of different sectors. It's incredible. So what we're going to talk about for the next 45 minutes is sort of how you go, it's partnerships between business and charity, and how we go from this sort of narrow perspective that looks at, basically I give you some money and we'll put your logo on here and traditional sort of donations and funding, to more sort of cohesive, strategic and sort of integrated partnerships between business and charities. And there's I don't mean to diminish the former point. It's incredibly valuable donations into the sector, but what we're going to focus on is how we can go beyond that and sort of drive more impact collaboratively. And to do that, I'm joined by an amazing panel. I'm going to ask the panel to sort of wave their hands, and I'm going to try my best to introduce you as we go through this, and then we'll sort of roll into a bit of a discussion and a chat together. So first person I'd like to introduce is Hayward Telco, who, if you can wave, Hayward, there we go, perfect. Who is the CEO for government at LexisNexis Risk. LexisNexis Risk does a lot of work to stop fraud, catch criminals, and enable equitable access to digital government. Hayward's also on the board for the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, the Evidence-Based Cybersecurity Research Group, and the DEA's Education Foundation. I would then love to introduce Teresa Girogi. Teresa, if you can give us a wave. There you are. Amazing. So Teresa is the CEO and founder of Clean Start Africa. Teresa was wrongfully imprisoned for a crime that she did not commit and sent to prison with her 3-month-old baby, which was obviously a dramatic and very transformational experience for Teresa. And since that experience, her life's purpose has been to support women and children leaving prison and successfully integrating back into society. She's the first woman by woman. She founded the first woman by woman social justice enterprise in Africa, and she convenes the Behind Bars Conference, which focuses on tackling or decriminalizing poverty and driving and coming up with strategies to drive and support people coming out of prison to integrate positively into society. After that, I'd love to introduce you to Mabel McCowan. Mabel, if you can give us a wave. So Mabel McCowan is Head of Partnerships at Save the Children. Her work is dedicated to positively transforming the lives of children around the world. Before working at Save the Children, Mabel worked at the Power of Nutrition, the International Medical Corps, the Women of the World Foundation, and in the UK government. And then finally, last but not least, I'd love to introduce Tom Harrison, if you can. Tom Harrison from the Partnering Institute. Tom has over 30 years experience in multi-stakeholder partnerships and really believes in the power of business and partnerships to collaborate together to solve development challenges. Tom advises some of the biggest foundations in the world to develop strategies and programs in order to deploy their programs and drive positive impact. So I thought how we would kind of do this session today is sort of go around or throw the floor to you guys. No particular order. Maybe we can do ladies first. If somebody wants to put their hand up, and just sort of talk about, in the topic, sort of diving deeper into partnerships, why win-win partnerships between business and charity are important. I don't know if anybody wants to sort of open the floor to kind of give their thoughts on that.
I mean, Andy, I'm happy to jump in. So partnerships are completely central to everything we do at Save the Children. It's such an honour to be here today and to be included. So thanks so much to the RELX team for such a great opportunity. So Save the Children is more than 100 years old. We work in 120 countries around the world. And we really are a partnership with children and communities to really focus on the most urgent challenges that children face around the world. So particularly focused on ensuring they have a healthy start in life, from those sort of precious first days all the way through to their 5th birthday, and ensure that they can really thrive in that period. We then think about education, how we can ensure every child, including girls, get a really excellent access to education. And then how do we keep children safe, and how do we ensure, particularly in so many conflict settings and humanitarian crises, that children are able to grow up and realize their potential. So that's what we do at Save the Children. We're incredibly fortunate to have a number of partnerships around the world where we get to deliver on this mission. And we are absolutely, really quite committed to thinking, how can that be a partnership that, yes, is funded appropriately, which is allowing and enabling the work that we deliver in partnership, but also how can we make sure those partnerships are really rich value exchanges of the very best, that the private sector can bring, and how can we utilize that and bring that impact, for children. So it's, a real pleasure to talk about that today. We have a partnership, it's exactly as I described, with RELX, who are a huge supporter of ours. They go far beyond sponsorship and think of a number of ways they can improve children's lives. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the panel has to say. It's a real honour to be on with Teresa, who's doing such amazing work and has an incredible mission as well. So maybe I'll hand over to her and look forward to the conversation.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mabel. And indeed, it's such a great honor, such a great privilege to be on this panel representing millions of women, girls, and children that we work with on the African continent who have been impacted by the justice system. And the truth of the matter is they are not in prisons because they're criminals. According to our research and from my own firsthand experience, when I got wrongfully incarcerated to serve a year sentence at the largest correctional facility for women here in Kenya, 70% of the women who are accompanied by their children up to the age of 4, and the young girls that we find in the Boston institutions here in Kenya and across the continent in due to poverty-related cases. My background is in banking and finance, and that's where I was growing my career. And it was in the banking sector that I truly saw what partnerships could do. And so when I found myself in the middle of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women accompanied by their children, and I myself was accompanied by my firstborn daughter to serve this sentence, which was such a miscarriage of justice for me. I thought, since I could not be able to do what's right by myself, I had to loop in partnerships. And after I got cleared and vindicated of any wrongdoing, which was 5 years post my incarceration, so it took me a lot of time to clear my name. It's the partnerships that we have formed at Clean Start Africa, the social enterprise that I founded, when I got vindicated, that have gotten Clean Start to where we're at today. 10,000 women, 6,000 children, 12,000 girls who have been incarcerated, now living decent lives, back into education through the scholarships that we offer. And all this has been possible because of partnerships. So I cannot overemphasize on, the importance of partnerships. And when I talk about partnerships, because we're about to celebrate our 10th year anniversary since I set up Clean Start. And, I've seen it all. And, what I'd love to emphasize is, partnerships that center on equity and not extraction. A bottom-up kind of an approach that respects local agency, because at the end of the day, these very women and girls that we are supporting, to be honest, have the long-term solutions to what the problems are. And so partnerships that are level-headed, no power dynamics coming into play, everyone's contributing something that's valuable to bring long-term change. And I believe that we're going to, dwell deeper into these conversations around partnerships because they are indeed complex, but very transformative when built on shared purpose. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. And just to sort of dig into that, I love that equity, not extraction. Is there an example? What's a good example of one of the partnerships that has sort of supported and sort of elevated that work?
Indeed, I could name quite a number. Praxis.co in the US is one of those, the Elevate Prize Foundation, the Siegel Family Foundation. There are quite a number of them that the African Collaborative, which was previously called the Africa Visionary Fund. These are some of the partners that have truly invested in the Clean Start mission. And the reason why I point on this, first and foremost, is the patient, long-term approach, transforming people's lives, especially when you're getting them from very traumatic spaces. You don't expect a KPI of how we'll have turned around their lives in a year, 2 years. It's got to be patient. We've got to be very clear on, in collaborate, KPIs that we agree on together, so, and we're both coming into this as partners to the solution. So.
Oh, you've muted. Teresa, you're muted somehow.
Sorry about that. And I wanted to pivot to also bring in corporates, businesses, that also partner in from a lens of yes, social impact, but that also brings greater business return on investment. And the reason that keeps these partnerships, being respectful and working well is regular feedback loops, flexibility to pivot, collaboration, and ensuring that all voices that shape the collaboration are in the room. And then the cons of this have been misaligned misaligned incentives. That's where I have seen issues coming, short-term thinking, as I mentioned, power imbalances. Thank you very much, Andy.
Cool. Thank you. Cool. Maybe go to Hayward next, because give a bit of perspective from the corporate side, but then maybe also between yourself and Mabel can explain a little bit about the relationship between RELX and Save the Children, and maybe also I was reading about your Adam project, Hayward, as well. So.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit different than the other amazing panelists here. And I was listening to Mabel and Teresa, and I was thinking, what can I say? So I think what I'm going to do is do a quick adjustment on the fly. And I want to talk first a little bit about things that I can't unsee because of the business that LexisNexis is in. And as you mentioned, we do a tremendous amount of work in law enforcement. And because of that work, we've been involved in investigations where we've seen trafficking of 12 and 13-year-old children by cartels. We've seen young children that are being controlled by pimps in virtually every major city in the United States of America, where they've been taken from their family or they run away because they didn't think they had a good family situation. And you just can't unsee those things. And as a result of that, I personally got engaged at the work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, something, by the way, that Lexis has been a huge advocate of even before I got here, and I've been here for 18 years. And during that journey, I came across some really interesting people. And I got to meet somebody, and I think she's on right now, but she didn't respond, an individual named Alicia Kozak. And Alicia and I became friends, and she actually is friends with my wife, and she's friends with my kids. And she was associated with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children because when she was 13 years old, she was the first known victim of child grooming. An individual purporting to be her age used the internet and began a dialogue with her. And Alicia, over Christmas, decided to meet the individual. He turned out to be, I think, in his 30s. He kidnapped Alicia and took her to a horrible place in Virginia. I had never heard that story before because Alicia and I had been friends until I was at an event with law enforcement and she told it. And I remember sitting there and bawling. Like, I couldn't believe she was even able to tell the story. And, you know, she came over to me to comfort me. And people like Alicia, these children that are being victimized by predators, is something that both Lexis and I personally align to. And then one more sort of context. I have a daughter. I actually have two daughters. But one of my daughters is, keep your fingers crossed. I hope she's headed to the Olympics in LA in 2028 for Ninja, the obstacle courses.
Oh, wow.
She's really, really good at it. And she has an account on Instagram. For those of you who want to follow her, it's #cliffhanger. And my wife runs the account. And there's been multiple times where individuals have tried to approach a 12-year-old inappropriately and trying to groom a 12-year-old girl. So one of the things that I am just acutely aware of is I think most people in this world are good people. I'd say 99.8% of the people are good people. But there is a percentage of individuals in this world that want to do harm, that want to harm our children, that want to do things that negatively impact a child's safety, well-being, both physical and mental. And I'm really proud of the work that we do both in law enforcement and at NCMEC to do our part to help prevent and also to help those that have been victimized. Now, so what do we do? So when I first started at Lexus, we would sponsor all the golf tournaments. And one of the great things about being here for 18 years, I can tell everyone unequivocally, I hate golf. And so what we started doing were these events. So for example, a bunch of us biked from Maine to Boston, 300 miles to raise money for NCMEC. Last year, a bunch of us ran the Marine Corps Marathon. And I mean, these are just regular people that work here. I mean, we don't have any star athletes here. These are just regular people that put their mind and passion into helping an organization that we support. And those two events have raised over $1 million for the charity. And that's how we help. We provide our support with tools and technology, and we provide our energy by doing these different events that get a lot of media attention on it. The last thing I want to say is for those of you that are here from the United States, if you go to missingkids.org and just Google the ADAM program, sign up for it. When a kid goes missing, they do alerts, and you get an alert. And what Alicia would tell you, if it wasn't for that NCMEC alert, she wouldn't be alive today. So that's what I wanted to say. I really appreciate the opportunity. We're a little bit different, sort of fit in between corporate and the nonprofit world. Thank you.
Thanks. No, thank you for that. It's very, very powerful and a really good illustration, actually, of how you're working with the nonprofit world to sort of enable each other, I guess, through that sort of common drive and purpose.
And stay in great physical shape, by the way. Try doing a marathon, try biking 300 miles.
Andy, I wonder if I could just come in quickly here, because something that Haywood said really resonated with our work at Save the Children. So I think on the spirit of these corporate charity alliances and where you can get that huge sort of win-win and strategic value. So we launched actually back in March in Barcelona, a new multi-year collaboration with the Vodafone Foundation. So what we're doing with Vodafone and a lot of what Andy said around keeping kids safe online is really what sparked me to think about this, is that, so Save the Children is all about thinking about what threats children are facing and how we can make the world safer for them. And working with Vodafone, what we are doing is we've co-created a curriculum that is going to be rolled out in a number of countries, so 9 countries across Europe, that's about how do we give young people between 9 and 16 the tools to keep themselves safe online. How do we get them to understand better what threats there are, how to share safely, how to create a safe online profile. You know, it's so critical. And I think there was a sort of era where parents wanted loads of control. How can we control and make everything safe? Actually, it's about giving kids those tools. And I mean, I'm sure, you know, there's so much that kids can teach us as well. So another thing that we've done is really embed child listening into the program so that kids are telling us how they are interacting online. And it not just being about us saying these are like the things you need to know, but it's actually a really, truly kind of co-created platform. I think it's partnerships like that where we couldn't do this without Vodafone's reach, without their network, without their technology, but they couldn't, you know, deliver the curriculum without that insight from children and the expertise that we have as a global NGO working on these issues around child rights online. So that's where we see that really strategic, you know, that win-win, that co-created collaboration, which which is so hugely valuable, and hopefully will keep lots of kids from having a similar situation to the one that Hayward talked about, which is absolutely harrowing.
Yeah. I mean, amazing illustrations of how that sort of combined capability can really drive an impact, and you know, at scale as well, the scale that it needs to operate. Tom, I don't know if you've got some perspectives from where in the world you sit around this, or something to share.
Yeah, so I've got a slightly different perspective to take us in a different direction for a moment, if I may. Talking about win-win. So when I started my career, which was in the 90s, a long time ago, I was working for an organization which I think today you would call an impact investor. And we were, you know, investing in businesses in countries in Africa and around the world, in fact, you know, creating jobs through investing in essentially what were businesses. And so I've always believed that the private sector has a huge role in development as an economic engine and force. And when I switched to the non-profit sector a bit later on, in fact, the partnering initiative that I now work for is a not-for-profit. I kept that with me, and I became involved in schemes such as employee volunteering, you know, where the skills of employees were applied to sustainable development issues. So companies like Accenture pioneered really exciting models about how to use that sort of business brain, those business approaches to help solve development challenges. So that was really exciting. And then later on, I started working in areas around developing socially useful products and services. So Teresa talks about alignment of incentives, which is absolutely critical in partnerships, particularly if you want them to be long lasting. And, you know, if you can create something which has a commercial interest to the company, that is the ultimate self-interest for the company. And if they will then create products and services which are, you know, reaching thousands, if not millions of people, that's very good development practice. So I think the classic example we all talk about is the Vodafone mobile banking applications that were developed mainly in Kenya and then spread all around the world. And then there were e-health applications as well, doing similar things. You know, this was where you start to get real scale. More recently, we've become involved in more complex partnerships, but ones which I think have potential for even greater scale. So I think some of the, you know, really moving stories we've heard in the last hour and before about how to kind of really change individual people's circumstances often requires, or certainly requires to be at scale, a system change. So the systems in which people sit and which create these opportunities for so much harm and damage can be changed, but that's a difficult thing. And it does involve multiple stakeholders. It does involve business, for sure. It also involves public sector. It involves civil society. It involves communities. But I think there's also a role for corporate foundations and other kinds of philanthropy, because what we've discovered in our research is that often those different actors from all parts of society can't come together without some sort of external facilitation. And so that's where philanthropy comes in. So I think we're working with some very ambitious foundations right now, which are prepared to put their funding into these sorts of programs and stay in it for the long term in order to make changes at system level, which then hopefully benefit many millions of individuals. So I think that's where multi-stakeholder collaboration becomes really exciting to me, and that's where you can also really get the power of the private sector. So I've been studying some programs which are helping farmers in all different parts of the world to farm in a much more sustainable way by reducing the inorganic fertilizers they use, by using less pesticides, by retaining moisture in the soil. So excellent practices which make them more productive, but also stop deterioration in the environment and conserve biodiversity. But the key to those programs is actually a partnership involving not only the local authorities, but actually businesses who are buying products such as organic cotton. And that is the motor that will make sure that those farmers are able to carry on farming in this new way for generations to come, and how the whole farming system in those areas is transformed in a positive way. So these things are possible. They're not simple. They can be done. And I certainly think that way of working fits onto the spectrum we've been talking about, which obviously includes corporate philanthropy and all kinds of other volunteering and other kinds of partnership. It all fits into the picture, but I think it's exciting to also contemplate these other ways of working.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there quite a bit, that these partnerships, especially given the scale of some of these partnerships, are complex. They are difficult to make work and to manage. And I think something that's sort of come out through the process of this discussion, or through this discussion, is the sort of is clearly in this panel and on this call a strong sort of anchor of purpose and belief and real sort of shared passion towards the different causes and the different initiatives that everybody's supporting. And so clearly that's a kind of common thread that needs to sort of gel people together through these partnerships to really make them work. But I don't know, I mean, maybe Teresa, you touched on this sort of alignment around these things. And I guess my experience with these sorts of partnerships as well is that alignment and shared sort of objectives are really important, but they're ever changing and transforming as the sort of relationship and the partnership evolves. So I don't know if you could sort of talk to your experience of kind of how you find sort of making these partnerships work, and any kind of anything to share with the audience around that.
Indeed, joint problem solving, for example, from day one, is one key area that we truly look at Clean Start. Do we both understand what the problem is? Are we aligned on that? And do we commit to solve this issue collaboratively, jointly, together from day one? So that even by the time you're getting to reporting or looking at the impact, we've been aligned all along, and what I've learned over this period of these 10 years is that best partnerships, they will outlast the setbacks that you will encounter along the way by valuing the relationship as much as the results. So some of the areas that, we want to make sure that by the time we're getting to the end of our term, of our partnership is the fact that it's not just the joint result that we're working towards, but it's the relationship between Clean Start, our constituents, and these other partners that are rallying around to see this change, and even post, because most of the time we'll get into a contract. It could be a year, 3 years, 5 years, or a 10-year contract to bring around the meaningful impact, the social change that we're looking for to work on. But even post this contract, would these partners say that, they truly understand this constituent and what the challenges are, and they've got relationships within the ecosystem over and above Clean Start, which was sort of the way maker into, for instance, for us, it's the justice ecosystem. And, we're opening doors to partners to see what's happening to those who have been justice impacted, for them to really understand what it's like for children who have been left by their mom, who, there wasn't an announcement that she's going to be incarcerated because she left that morning to go and source for food and other means of, maybe she's looking for funding towards education, housing, she's looking for rent. And, she's got her wares. She's gone into the streets. So most of them go in because they didn't have a trading license, but she was selling some stuff. Yeah. But so, yeah, we're all about law and order. But because of the poverty and the high rates of unemployment, mom didn't come back. So we're bringing in this partner to understand that the children that we're going to impact are children that are traumatized, are children that very day when mom went into prison was the day that this child was exposed to abuse. This was the very day they started sleeping hungry. This was the very day they had to drop out of school, and so on and so forth. And so, yes, a case, maybe an example, you're committing $1 million to bring in some meaningful change, but you need to understand all the moving parts of this ecosystem that we're working with. We're working with prison authorities who are holding the mom, whom we'd love to see the children on and off. We're dealing with a justice system that is still using archaic, pre-colonial, petty law offenses that are still in our statute books since colonization that need to be changed. And so as we get into this partnership, we want some flexibility. I could use some of the funding towards advocacy to change the laws. I could use some of the funding to empowering the woman to be economically empowered. I could use some of the funding towards education, of the children, to research, because we need data so that we can have evidence-based advocacy. That flexibility to look at the solutions and not just a one-size-fits it all. And we're creating relationships with all these players. Things change as we are into this partnership, I want the partner to look at this as an opportunity to development. And sitting in the African continent, there's so much potential. When I think about a third of the youth by 2050 will be sitting on the African continent, there's just so much opportunity. And that's how I want the partner to look at this. Yes, I'm doing it in Kenya. We want to do it in Sierra Leone. We want to do it in South Africa. We want to do it in Nigeria, in Tanzania, and across the African continent, because problems are pretty much the same, given the fact that the origin of the problem is pretty much the laws, the pre-colonial laws that are still existing, and how we look at rehabilitation and reintegration, the high rates of poverty. And so there's some similarities, just the context will need to change. But when we get into those new countries, we'll need to find those who will lead with this solution, not necessarily Clean Start. So it's a lot of reshaping the access, how are we looking at inclusion? Yeah, we work very much from a peer-led solution approach. The formerly incarcerated women themselves going back into those very institutions to model what rehabilitation should look like and what reintegration means, and why the peer-to-peer approach. I totally understand what it means for a mother to be behind bars with her child. And so I need the prison wardens and the duty bearers and the right holders to understand that I carry a voice that brings a heavy part of the solution. Other than inclusion, scalability across the continent. I don't want to look at this just as Clean Start. I want to look at this with a corporate, with a partner that's saying to me, Teresa, Clean Start Africa, I want to partner with you. So can we look at scalability across the continent? I was listening to the previous panel, and I really loved the idea around being, ridiculously ambitious. And he brought about Elon Musk's dream, and I thought to myself, my goodness, why am I always trying to fit into what's available? And he has no idea. I think I'm going to be very ridiculous in my next meetings with my partners, because I want to dream at scale, and not what's available. And just before I got onto this call, I checked in with my finance manager. What's in our petty cash? Because I want to know what I'm authorizing. That's not how I should be living my life. So this has been incredible. These conversations that are going on here, incredible. And I hope that many more leaders of organizations who are doing great and good in the world are going to continue being, ridiculously ambitious, because we want to do good for humanity, for people, planet. Let's prosper. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Andy, we made our post-it notes earlier. Hashtag be more ridiculous.
I guess.
Although the hashtags today are hashtag Inspiration Day and hashtag Future of Philanthropy. Actually, it's hashtag SDG Inspiration Day. Andy Jewish and your panel, all of you, thank you so much. Give yourself a round of applause. Absolutely brilliant. Andy, final word from you before we say goodbye.
I can't find it. Just thank you to the panel. I'm feeling inspired.
Thank you so much.
I will be trying to think of my ridiculous goals for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Absolutely brilliant. We've got very thought-provoking. We've got lots of chat coming in.